tried to jump him, and he pulled out a
Mhm.
knife and stabbed one of them. Now,
Yeah.
the stabbing, I don't know the legality behind that. I know Texas is stand your ground. A stabbing is too personal, in my opinion. Even if I got into a fight, I wouldn't want to do something like that. But to automatically say that this black boy deserves a death penalty by all of these conservatives on Twitter, on YouTube, that's absurd. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, he killed somebody?
Yeah, Corin, he killed the white boy. Yeah, he killed the white boy, Corin.
Oh man, I didn't hear that part. Maybe when I heard.
So this is how I feel about that, because like right now, that's like it's being publicated, on the news, and like it's in a lot of media outlets right now. And it's kind of ironic that the young guy named is Carmelo Anthony. I'm sure he was probably named after Denver Nuggets small forward, given his age. But let's really look at this, and let's kind of like pull his pull the skin back for a second and kind of see what's underneath it. Um, you don't go to places where there's a lot of white people and you're like the only person who's of color that's standing out. Like, you're not supposed to do that. I've made that mistake in my life, doing something like that. And this is why you see that, most black people, they're concentrated throughout one area. Like, you got Philadelphia, you got Chicago, you got Detroit, you got Miami. They're concentrated throughout areas where there's other people of color. So I already know how this went down. I already know what happened. It's quite simple. Someone was giving me pushback in the chat. Think the person name was Leak. This person was giving me pushback. And this is what I have to say to that. I have two incidents where I can just point to and say, you know, what this person did was clueless. And you know what? They were white, right? This is one time when I was in Chicago. I was in Beverly Hills, Chicago. I was doing contractor work on this woman's house back in 2005, I think it was. And I'm walking on her steps, getting ready to do some roofing. My contractor head, he's inside the house. And, we're doing carpentry, right? Lady pulls up in a car. They couldn't have been no more than like 18. I'm like, 15, 15 years old. They pull up in a car and, she's with her friend, two white women. And she said, "Are you lost?" And they started laughing at each other and pulled off. That's when I knew like something was wrong with these people. And then the second time, right? This was in like I want to say 2018, 2019. I was working at Henry Ford Museum in Detroit. And, I'm walking into the museum, getting ready to clock in, and a bunch of white teenagers just, they started circling around me. And like the one guy, he looked like he could have been like a, linebacker, on, a JUCO squad. You know what I mean? Like he could have been a linebacker. He started clapping his hands and hunched over at me, making monkey sounds. And that's when I knew again, like something was wrong with these people. I thought they were going to actually try to haze me. I thought they were going to try to haze me and attack me. And like you saw what happened with Anthony, right? The young guy Anthony, who's in jail right now on an indictment and charge, a public indictment, right? I don't think he's been arraigned before a judge yet or anything, but he's in jail right now, and he stabbed the guy, who was in a picture, with a gun, you know, and he stabbed him, and we don't know what happened actually because there were no cameras around, but we can kind of see what actually happened. We can kind of see. It's not, it's not rocket science what happened. When you do things like have a meltdown or start, um, over overdoing it. Like when you start overdoing it, like you start tweaking. That's what we call it in Chicago. When you start tweaking, right? When you do stuff like that, this is the incident that happens. It's in the news now. We don't know what happened. All we know is the guy, he got stabbed, and this is what happens. So like when you see things like this happen, it's probably likely that his parents didn't discipline him. They let him do what he wanted to do. And you see this all the time with the women who are in the markets and they're pushing their kids in the stroller and the kids start acting out. The one who's a couple years older, he starts acting out, pushing the stroller, throwing stuff on the ground, having a tantrum. You know what I mean? Like, this is one of those cases. And like his father told the media, like, let's not make this a race thing. You know what I mean? Because he knows the backlash that's going to come with this. Like his son was like a football player, or you know what I'm saying? Like, and look at Anthony, like he's a little guy, so it's like he probably got tried. And like when you try people, that's what happens. You back a small person into a corner. You don't know what's going to happen after that. You don't pick on small people. So like we don't know what happened, but like I can kind of see actually what may have taken place. And this is why everyone is talking about it right now, trying to figure out what actually happened, because it's not going to look right when you have a person of color who's in the media, with a mugshot, and you have someone whose photo is being circulated throughout the internet of him standing next to his father in cleats. You see what I mean? They're going to think he's innocent and Anthony is in the wrong. So take it how you want. We can dissect it either way. But, people realize what's really going on in this nation. And, far as immigration, a lot of black people want immigration reform. And it doesn't always have to be just a predicted sort of evaluation where like, okay, white people has to leave. No, a lot of black people want to leave as well. This is where you have Africa like, you know what? Just come home back to Africa. We're going to grant you a bold. We're going to grant you citizenship by descent. You know what I mean? Just take a DNA test. And this is what I'm saying. Like, people see what's going on now. Great peace, Yakoki.